Monsters, The Dark Continent. This is a sequel to the independently produced Monsters movie. That was the man behind that was Gareth Edwards, who went on to bigger and, you could argue, not quite better things, but he's made a bit of a name for himself. He was behind the 2014 Godzilla and is, I believe, going to be doing one of the Star Wars films. So this is a sequel to the original movie. Now, that movie was very interesting, the fact that it was extremely low budget, and all the kind of the CGI monster effects were kind of done on this guy's own sort of PC, I believe. That's as far as I know anyway. And basically the kind of the premise of this kind of universe is that there's something's called, I think it's some kind of alien parasite or something along the lines of that, that was brought down by a satellite, has essentially caused this kind of new species to kind of evolve here on Earth, and this has caused these kind of like massive H.P. Lovecraft style sort of tentacle monsters to start wandering around, and then they're essentially like sort of almost like massive plankton, and they sort of multiply very sort of quickly. And the first movie sort of dealt with these sort of two characters. They kind of traverse the landscape. Now, the sequel to this particular movie doesn't really focus on there's nothing to do with the kind of the characters from the first film. Instead, it focuses on a group of soldiers. They head out to the Middle East to both deal with kind of these kind of monsters that are sort of destroying sort of populated areas, but more importantly to deal with insurgents, just kind of like nowadays where they're having to sort of deal with kind of the Middle Eastern conflicts and stuff like that. So the majority of this film, to be quite honest, is that this is a 90% a war film with a sprinkling of kind of monsters wandering around in the background. So if you're expecting a kind of just a full-on of monster fest, you'll be a little bit disappointed here, because they're actually very little to do with this film, which kind of annoys me. There's always this argument that it's the human element, it's all about the character building and blah de blah. But let me put it like this: when you go and see a Transformers movie, you want to see it for the Transformers, don't you? You want to see it big for Optimus Prime and Megatron. You don't care about the human characters. And to be honest with you, it's kind of the same thing if you go and watching a film called Monsters. You want to see some damn monsters. And the first one I think you could get away with it because it was so low budget that they didn't have a choice. This one, I feel, is just almost trying to copy that formula somewhat. So the other problem here, of course, is that the first film, I felt, did a good job of building characters that you actually care about. And this movie, unfortunately, the kind of the soldiers really just seem like typical sort of macho assholes. The first 15 minutes basically is essentially going to be this sort of character building, this sort of group of guys, but they just come across as complete animals, if completely honest, without any sort of redeeming features. They just seem to be, the whole 15 minutes is them basically just sort of doing drugs and, looking macho, standing there with their guns and all that sort of thing, and shagging prostitutes. It's just like, they don't really sort of show you any kind of real redeeming features. They just seem like a bunch of animals, if I'm completely honest. So when you kind of, when you sort of follow them, you don't really feel that they're real people. They just seem to be sort of caricatures. And it focuses on, I guess, sort of two main sort of soldiers, without sort of spoiling anything, to be honest. But unfortunately, I didn't feel the character development went in the right direction here, and they just seem like cliches to me. The last third of this movie actually takes a different direction and kind of tries to slow down, and we do actually get a little bit more sort of character building moments, but it comes across as a bit sort of incoherent and arty, and kind of slows down to a bit of a halt, and making the film in total seem to lose direction somewhat. But I think some people may still appreciate this. On a kind of a side note here, the other thing that kind of irritated me a little bit was that it has this kind of periodic narration that I didn't feel was necessary, and kind of distracted you and just didn't really seem to fit with the movie, and just kind of was more of just for exposition. I wish I kind of didn't have that at all, if I'm completely honest. Now, the actual technical side of things I thought was very good. I thought it looks fantastic. I thought the on the technical side, the cinematography was very good. It was very well shot. I think the action sort of scenes were sort of well done and kind of quite thrilling. And the effects as well were very, very good. It has a bigger budget effects than the first film, and when we do sort of see the CGI monsters, I think they look pretty good. They look kind of different from the first film, I have to say, so I'm not quite sure if they're meant to have mutated somewhat from the first film and now look kind of quite a lot different, because they look more kind of HP style sort of tentacle monsters. But there's also some pretty good sort of, you know, prosthetics and things like that, and kind of some of the sort of the wounds that some of the soldiers will kind of suffer, you know, look pretty harsh, and the action is all well shot, so I can't fault it really from a technical level. I just thought some of the kind of the writing and basically the direction that the sort of human characters were taking was a little bit subpar. And like I said, the main thing here, if you're wanting a movie which is going to be, you know, creature feature, it really isn't that. Like I say, that the creatures are more in the peripheral, and they never really have much of an effect on the actual story itself. It's really just a war film that just happens to have kind of sort of monsters in the background a lot of the time. But you know, it is still somewhat entertaining, despite the fact that to me it was more trying to this film was like, oh look, here's the human element with monsters in the background, but they failed to really capitalise on making you care about the human element. So I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. If you've seen it, what did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.